Welcome to Connection Oasis. We're Hope and Renee, two friends sharing our stories, lessons, and laughter. We are honored and excited to announce that we just released our first book. It honestly feels surreal to say it out loud, but the book you must read before you turn 40 was released in January.
It is absolutely surreal. We've each read multiple books throughout our journey of growth. We found that some challenged us while others reassured us. My favorite book was published in 1960. It is
Wow.
still benefiting readers in their growth today. That is a great deal of support to a great many people.
That is a long time for that book to still be relevant, and we can only hope that many, many years from now, ours is still relevant as well. Because having the opportunity to offer some encouragement to anyone who may benefit from it, that's what inspires us. So we have been through several seasons of life together, and we've noticed that our journeys have differed in some very significant ways.
They have, and that's such a gift. It didn't seem like it maybe at the time,
Yeah.
but I think it really was. We've been friends since we were about 13. We're about as different as two friends can be.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, the thing we probably didn't realize until we were approaching 40 is that those differences were so beneficial to our growth. I think that we were sitting around the table at my house when we began talking about all those things that we wished we had known before we were 40.
That was a long conversation and an even longer list, I think.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not mistaken, we joked like, "Hey, we should write a book." There are people I'm sure that are thinking, maybe I don't know what I need to know to continue in the right direction. And there are people right behind us on this journey. Like, how do we let them know what's coming next? Um, because we so wish we had that. And then following that conversation, I don't even think we had another conversation. It wasn't orchestrated or anything. Like, I think we both just went back separately and we're like, well, let me try this. And I remember talking to you the next time. I was like, you know how we were joking about writing that book? Like, I actually did it. And you were like, yeah, me too.
Yes, it was actually such a meaningful conversation. And I was reassured that we both kind of felt the same way because you're right. After that conversation, I kind of had this list in my head.
Hmm.
So I decided to just put it down on paper. And I think that very idea was the seed that grew into the book you must read before you turn 40. Just because we felt like we might have something to share or some encouragement to bring to someone else. This book is our attempt to offer that support and empathy to anybody out there who's juggling all those adult responsibilities that distract us from focusing on ourselves and those helpful, priceless conversations with our besties.
Yeah, obviously, you never know where they could lead. And
So true.
on that note, the book is called The Book You Must Read Before You Turn 40. But really, 40 is not really about a number or a birthday. It's about a season of life. And it represents a time in your life where hopefully, and for us, we did find that to happen around 40, that life kind of slowed down a bit. Definitely didn't stop, but it slowed down enough for us to stop and have conversations like we had and to really think about what is going on. Like, how did I get here and where am I?
It's that sort of window when life is slow enough, not,
Mhm.
like relaxing pace, but slow enough that we really have an opportunity to notice some things where where are we physically? Where are we emotionally, even professionally? And, when you have those sort of few quiet moments, that's when you tend to sort of notice like, this was the path that led here, but is this the path that I purposely chose? Did it choose me? And more importantly, now that we have a second to notice the path and to acknowledge the path. Are we still on the path that we want to choose? It's not
Hmm.
necessarily a moment of regret. It's more just clarity and a reassessment.
Absolutely. I love that clarity because, some people call it a midlife crisis, which has always just been like nails on a chalkboard to me. I'm like, am I supposed to expect like this horrible thing to happen to me at midlife? No, no, really, I love the clarity. Like midlife clarity to me is a much better word because I think if you listen to those signals that are starting to happen and you have those quiet moments where you can listen to it, it does become more of a clarity and it doesn't necessarily have to be a crisis. Now, maybe if you don't hear those signals or you don't listen to them, I guess it maybe could become a crisis, but that's what we're trying to avoid here.
Absolutely. And the path is so it's just so open, it can lead you here, there, and everywhere. And
Hmm.
and I think it's easy to slip a few times to maybe get off, the path that you intended to be on.
Very, very true. So, do you ever remember feeling something that, like, maybe started your questioning process, like a moment where you just thought, this kind of feels off. Like, what's up here?
I do. I was right around 30, I think, and I had a confrontation, a public confrontation with a family member. And this person was somebody that I really wanted to have a close relationship with.
Mm,
Um, and so I remember just feeling incredibly hurt and disappointed in the way that this interaction had gone. And I came to you, I think, sobbing.
oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
and
that.
yes, and I remember just asking, am I crazy here? I couldn't pinpoint any specific thing about that interaction that was actually really different than most of our interactions. It
Hmm.
just so happened that this particular time, I just really began to notice how hurt and disappointed that I was in this person. The interaction wasn't terribly different. So that I think is why I went to you like, am I crazy? Is this person crazy? Um,
Right. And I remember being like, this always happens. Like, what's the difference here?
yes, you did. You did. And you reassured me that this wasn't different behavior, but that it was absolutely okay that I was recognizing how it made me feel in the moment. And because of our interaction and your encouragement, I started talking to a counselor, and it made a huge difference.
That was yeah, a huge start on a different path for you, for sure.
Yes, exactly. How about you? Did you have a similar experience or?
I did, and mine was not so huge. It was very more subtle, and it really was only about me. It didn't really involve my relationships with anyone else except for me with myself. And I remember being in my office at work, and it was fairly early in my career, but someone came into my office and they told me a funny story, and my response was, "Oh, that's funny," and they walked out, and I stood stunned at my response, and I was like, "At what point in my life did I decide responding instead of laughing was where I wanted to be because I love to laugh. Why did I intentionally not laugh? Like, that's ridiculous." And so I don't know, for some reason, it just kind of smacked me in the face like, you're taking life too seriously. Like, have some fun. My God, like if somebody tells you a good story, laugh for God's sake. So so I didn't really make any huge life changes or go and do anything differently, but I did decide to stop and make sure that in the future when something was funny, I actually laughed. And it did take a few times because it somehow had become my initial reaction. And eventually I did get back to laughing. And that was a very small thing, but it just was something I was like, wait a minute. I am on this path to taking things way too seriously. This is going to be the first thing I change.
And that's important. It was a small moment of clarity, but it led to some pretty amazing things. And so, every journey begins with the first step. And A lot of times that first step, I think, is sort of the quiet questioning phase. It's important, and it is absolutely awesome that you took a second to reflect and to, just allow yourself to have some clarity. And in both of our cases, they were very unexpected moments of clarity.
Yes,
And I think that's kind of the point. The point is when you don't see these things coming, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm proud of us for taking a second to reflect on what we felt in the moment and then, to make an assessment, share about it and decide what it means for us and what we choose.
exactly. And in both cases, it didn't really mean that we had to tear up our lives and start all over.
Right.
For me, it was just a daily decision. And for you, it was taking a step to talk to someone different and get a different perspective.
Exactly.
So it didn't mean, and there's a term that people use. They usually use it in romantic relationships, and it's called. They'll say, "Oh, that's a red flag." And for me growing up, I thought red flags meant stop and go the other way. But
Right.
I started realizing that red flags means just, hey, this is something you just need to assess. And so I think for
Yes.
both of us, these are kind of assessing red flags. You don't have to just, it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to reinvent your entire life.
Just take a second, look around. How do you feel?
Yes, exactly. If you are in this season of life or even past it, you're not too late. You're definitely not broken. And you're not behind. Some of us will realize this much younger. I think one of my daughters is very in tune to where she's at in life at a very young age. And then another one of my children it might be later when they finally figure this out. So it doesn't matter where you fall in this. 40 is just a symbolic number. Just being aware is the beginning.
So important to just be aware, take a second, and think about how you feel. Is this the way that I thought I was going to feel in this moment?
Exactly. And so let's think of it as a doorway, the fabulous 40 doorway. It's not a
Yes.
destination. It's not it's not some place where you have to reinvent yourself. It's just a doorway that you start walking through, and when you get on the other side, you see things a little bit differently.
Yes, that's a perfect analogy in my opinion.
And we have so many things to explore moving forward. In future episodes, we're definitely going to talk about some of the tools that we use. Today, we talked about how just stopping and recognizing that it can be a tool. But there are more. There are lots more that we needed to get to this point in our journey. So many more.
So talking to a third party, I went to
Oh,
you and that was huge for me,
it, yes, exactly. So we have a whole section in our book called the tool belt, where we have listed a lot of the things that we used during these points in our journey. So you could flip back there if you want to
Hmm.
start to see some of those tools. But other big topics that we're going to touch on are triggers. Oh,
Yes.
triggers. That
Yes.
that might be a couple of episodes.
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
Yes, boundaries and walls also, and it's amazing how that topic, I think, came up in every other topic that we discussed. So I think we'll
Yes.
talk about that often.
It touches every relationship that you have, personal, work, anything. It's so difficult to navigate, honestly.
Oh my, yes. Sometimes it's very one-sided, and that's even harder.
Yes.
We're going to talk about how to choose yourself without blowing up your life. How to fit you. This sounds funny when you say it out loud, but how to fit you in your own life. Because
Right.
sometimes you realize you're really not in it. It's kind of running you instead of you running your life. So
Yes. And
definitely
you're
we're
just
going
trying to keep up.
so it's not about becoming someone new. It's about listening to the person who has been there all along. So we hope you continue to join us. Grab a copy of the book. Our next chapter is about the plan. So if you want to read ahead there, you can join us for that. And we definitely hope to see you here next time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us here at Connection Oasis, where we discuss real life lessons about relationships and boundaries
And becoming who you actually are without the fluff.